Hey everyone, welcome back into the Athletic Fantasy Cheat Sheet brought to you by Jock Market. We're going to talk about a group of players here who have controversial ADPs. We've got some guys with a wide range, and we are not just talking about guys who are going deep and all of a sudden have, a couple of people who like him 60 picks higher. We're talking guys who are getting drafted very highly who still have a pretty wide range. So we are going to get into those guys right here. The first, Austin Ekeler. In general, a late first, early second round pick, an ADP of 16.01. The high on him right now is 6. The low is 23. Jake, we're going to go to you. Let's say it like this. Would you be more inclined to go the high of 6, the ADP of 16, or the low of 23?
I would definitely more inclined to go the high because I would probably be willing to take him at the end of the first round. It really comes down to, it's funny because Michael Flory came after me on Twitter. He's like, I remember you said you didn't want him as an RB1 because it was just like offhand thinking back in May. And since the projections came out, he's solidly a RB1. With the most recent update, I moved down Kenyon Drake. And Austin Ekeler, I think he's like right around RB10. And it really comes down to it's just the use. And everybody's scared about the size and the body. But it's funny that everybody goes gaga over pictures of DK Metcalf and Mohamed Sanu, but they don't pay attention to the picture where it looks like a truck was built inside of Austin Ekeler's body. I don't think he's going to be 25 touches every single week. But Tyrod Taylor doesn't not throw to the running back. I am completely fine thinking that Austin Ekeler can do better in the rushing game and just maybe see a little bit of decrease in the passing game and still be an RB1 just fine. Low-end RB1, but it's fine. He's still an RB1.
Yeah, he's an untraditional RB1. I think that's the hang-up. They see this little guy, feels like he's a change-of-pace guy, and you can't draft him with the big boys at the running back position. I've been kind of RB 13, 14 overall. I have him just outside the RB1 class. But one of the most hyper-efficient guys when he has the ball in his hands, and we heard – Beller, you did the beat writer roundup, and that was kind of it came from Daniel Popper, who covers the Chargers for The Athletic, was that they're not looking to change his role at all from what we saw last year. And that's great news if you've already drafted Ekeler, and it's great news if you plan to draft Ekeler going forward. And I agree. I think Tyrod Taylor going to know how to throw the ball to Austin Ekeler. You can say what you want about him.
Which role, though? Is it the first 8 games roll or is it the second? I mean, the second 8 games roll, he's still like RB15, but the first 8 games roll, he was like RB3. So
he was RB2.
I'm hedging a little bit more towards the second roll. I mean, I think Justin Jackson, Joshua Ciely, they're going to have their say they're not going to be the Melvin Gordon. I frankly don't. Right. I'm not inspired by either of those guys, so I would not be surprised if they try those guys, they decide they might want to give Ekeler a little bit bigger carry load than they even planned going into the year.
Joshua Kelly, man, he loves cereal too. That's all that matters.
That is all that matters right there. I don't mean to be pedantic, but I'm pretty sure he was the RB2 Ekeler those first 8 games. Only Christian McCaffrey, I'm pretty sure, outscored him. So would love to see that first half roll than the second half roll. But either way, if you want to get him, be prepared to use a late first, early second round pick on Austin Ekeler. Let's move on to our next guy here. It is rookie Jonathan Taylor out of the University of Wisconsin. Right now in this shot, you can see just a little bit above my head that W. There's a W right there. There it is. I finally got it right there. Love the badge. It takes a while. Still figuring it out, but I got it. This guy dominated the Big Ten at Wisconsin. Now with the Indianapolis Colts, a great offensive line, leaves one in college, goes to one in the pros. 33.89 is the ADP, a high of 15. That's got to be a Badger. A low of 54 on Jonathan Taylor. Jake, take this one first. Where you at on Jonathan Taylor? 2 weeks out from the start of the season.
15 is way too high, although his low is way too low, but I would trend more towards the low. And it's something we've talked about before. And so there's a big Twitter discussion going recently about this. Phillip Rivers has always had a running back targeted at least 100 times. And my issue with this is, this, Beller, we've talked about it. I think Jonathan Taylor's a better pass catcher than people realize, but he's in that Leonard Fournette role where he's that dump off option. He's not the route runner of Hines. I just don't think Hines is going away. Is Hines going to necessarily see 100? Probably not, but if he's getting 70 targets, it's going to take away from Taylor, even if Taylor takes the job by week 1. I love Taylor. I do. I had him in tier 1 of rookies. It's just the volume is my concern, and that's really what it comes down to. It's not that I don't love the talent. It's just the volume.
Yeah, I'm with Jake on this. I love Jonathan Taylor. I just can't justify his ADP right now. I mean, Stephen Holder, who covers the Colts for The Athletic, has said over and over and over again, they're just not going to dismiss Marlon Mack. Incumbency means something. They think he's a really good player, and that Jonathan Taylor is going to absolutely have to come in and earn his way. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens for the end of the year, but the way he's being drafted in ADP, it's like he almost has to hit the ground running. And I just don't know if that's going to be the case. The one thing Holder did say is they're throwing the ball to all these running backs right now. That Phillip Rivers is throwing to Marlon Mack, who's been a complete non-factor in the passing game. They're all getting reps out in the passing game. So I guess they can all be a threat in that capacity when they're on the field.
Austin Ekeler's best friend last year could be Jonathan Taylor's best friend this year in his rookie season. Let's bump out to the wide receiver position, talk about Cooper Kupp here. Mr. Consistent at the wide receiver position. Wide receiver 4 last year, you guys, by points per game in half PPR and full PPR leagues. A 37.44 ADP for Cooper Kupp, high of 25, low of 56. Brandon, where are you inclined to go? You going to reach for him? You happy at ADP, or is it going to have to be that low discount for you to jump in on Kupp?
Yeah, you guys can the watchers here can surface our podcast here at The Athletic and see Jake and I go, pit stops on Cooper Kupp where he's at. I tend to be more bullish. Yes, I know that when they ran 12 personnel and when they ran, their offense that sits down the stretch, Cooper Kupp started sitting on the sidelines more. But one thing he kept doing was scoring touchdowns. It's a skill that he has basically shown since he's entered the league. I think he's still going to be one of Jared Goff's very first guys that's going to be looking his way in the red zone. But I just really don't think that they're going to – it really comes down to your expectations. Is he going to play as much as he did early in the season, or is he going to sit a little bit like he did down the stretch? Again, I am going to lean towards them playing him more than not. Just comes down.
Yeah, we're finally in a major disagreement here, and it just comes down to here's what it is. It's I don't know what Sean McVay's thinking. So this is coming from somebody. This isn't like a victory lap. Just understand this is a fan of Cooper Kupp. I was one of the highest people on Cooper Kupp coming out of college, thinking similar to Terry McLaurin, don't pigeonhole him as a slot guy. He can do more, and we've seen that success with Jared Goff. But I am legitimately concerned, as Brandon just said, it's just the snap count. And yes, he kept scoring touchdowns, and I'm not trying to throw this player back in Brandon's face, but what about Alvin Kamara when the touchdowns just dry up? And I'm just touchdowns are variable. You can swing the opposite direction. Obviously, Kamara should be in the middle ground. Kupp should be in the middle ground. But what if it swings in the opposite direction? The 60% snap count, the 70% snap count concerns me. He's in the 40s. I don't hate the guy. I still have him as a top 20 wide receiver. I just wouldn't take him as a wide receiver 1 inside that top 10. But if you told me today, if somebody knew what Sean McVay was going to do and you told me he was playing 90% of the snaps all 15, 16 games, I'd put him back inside the top 10.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a guy whose usage is going to go a long way toward determining where he ends up. Robert Woods, of course, there too. So a lot of volume for those two wide receivers. We got one more guy to talk about. We're going to go back to the running back position here. The fantasy player in me wishes we could have got J.K. Dobbins on a different team for this year. I'm worried about Mark Ingram being there and still having a large role in the offense. I think going forward, buy all the J.K. Dobbins you can alongside Lamar Jackson. This season, I worry a little bit about the presence of Mark Ingram. ADP 69.26 for the rookie out of Ohio State, a high of 49, a low of 116. Now that low is awfully low. Don't plan on getting J.K. Dobbins at 116. That almost seems like an accident. But 69.26 feels like a pretty fair price for him. We're going to go to you first here, Brandon. Where are you at on J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, I think he's basically slated for Gus Edwards touches, and maybe Gus Edwards is slated for Justice Hill's touches. But I think you're probably talking about 140 to 150 touches for J.K. Dobbins. You're probably going to get another 220-ish from Mark Ingram. And honestly, I think J.K. Dobbins, because I've kind of thrown out Kareem Hunt. I see him as kind of similar players, guys that run physical and can hurt you in the passing game as well. I think J.K. Dobbins is going to do more with those 140 touches than Gus Edwards did. And so I have him ranked as just outside the top 30 at the running back position. If Mark Ingram were to get hurt, I think this guy could be a top 10 fantasy running back immediately. But this is not his year. It's still Mark Ingram's year. They're still going after the Super Bowl. Mark Ingram's done a lot to help this team in being successful, and I think that's going to win out for at least one more year.
Yeah, I have Dobbins at 42. How many touches did you say, Brandon?
140 to 150. I basically, Gus Edwards had
actually, I have more than you. I have him for 170. He still checks in at RB 42. But again, I ranked to my projections. Understand we've written articles about it. If we're talking about RB 42 and we're talking about Adrian Peterson's right in front of him, who has more upside, I'll draft Dobbins. So like those are the roster constructions that come into play. The truth is about Dobbins is the very first thing you said, Mike. Like for Dynasty, though, I love this because I would actually take him in front of DeAndre Swift in Dynasty if I can afford to wait 1 year for my running back. Like if I don't need help this year, give me Dobbins next year. He'll be top 10. We'll be talking about him as top 10 next year. But Mark Ingram is not going away unless he gets hurt, and that's the biggest problem. And so, yes, the Gus Edwards role feels fun for 1 or 2 or 3 games, and you're not going to know what those 3 games are anyway.
There you go, guys. Controversial ADPs. 4 guys: Austin Ekeler, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, and J.K. Dobbins. 4 guys that all of us are going to be pretty interested on our respective draft days. This is the Athletic Fantasy Cheat Sheet brought to you by Jock Market. Get 30% off a subscription to The Athletic. You go to theathletic.com/draftkit.